So let me introduce you. This is my dear friend and colleague and just amazing person, Debra Poneman. Some of you know her, some of you might not. For over 4 decades, she's an original. She's one of the original people. I'm just going right off script, but she's one of the original people who understood like the power of the mind to create transformation, the power of energy, the power of attitude, the connections that you make. And she actually has mentored many of the people that you have heard of who are global leaders. They started with her. For over 40 years, she has been running her Yes to Success seminars, and she's shared this with hundreds of thousands of people around the world. She's just doing another iteration. And I want to, rather than like just going into what exactly the system accomplishes, I would love to have Deb talk about it herself. As I said, she's been the mentor for many household names, millionaires, billionaires, corporate clients like Mattel Toys, Xerox, McDonnell Douglas, Shackley, and others. She's been on all kinds of media, and ABC, NBC, Fox, CNN, Good Morning, Good Coast to Coast, Good Morning America, from Coast to Coast, Good Morning America, New England, Chicago Today, and Mid Morning LA. And she has 2 children that she's crazy about and tells me that I have not met them, but if they're anything like you, Deb, I know that they're really amazing. And I just want to thank you for being here again. Debra never, she's so far, she doesn't, I don't know, I don't want to put pressure on. She always says yes to
I always say yes to you because you are one of my favorite people on the planet. You're also one of my favorite teachers on the planet. What I always say about you is that you don't just parrot what other people say. You are the most original thinker, and I could just sit and listen to you all day long, and I do. So, it's just always an honor to be invited by you. I have a little bit of a cold, so if you're wondering why I sound a little crazy, but
you don't sound crazy.
I'm going to let this cold make
melt
me
away
with you.
Oh, wow. Okay. Okay. And just deep appreciation, gratitude, and love to you. So is it okay if we start out talking about Yes to Success? I know this, we didn't talk about this before, but could you explain a little bit to people how you got started, how you derived the principles, what you experienced, how you got it, how you ended up mentoring these like famous people? Yeah.
Well, I'll make a long story short. I was a meditation teacher in the 70s, and I really enjoyed teaching meditation. But when the decade of the 70s was over, I worked for this nonprofit, and I realized that I needed to make some money. So I moved to LA and I got a job selling investments. It was totally wrong for me, but you know the expression, we make plans and God laughs. Yeah. Well, God had a big laugh over me moving to LA to make money by selling investments. I was just, I don't believe that anybody is a failure at anything, because I believe that it's all a gift and we learn from what people think are mistakes. They're not. They're just our path. And so I'm in LA and I'm selling investments, and I'm invited to a place called the Learning Annex. And this was 1980. And the teacher there was talking about the law of attraction, about how our thoughts create our reality. And he was saying that if you are experiencing not a lot of success in your life, he said, we're like tuning forks, and a tuning fork that's vibrating at an F sharp will repel a B flat. It will only attract an F sharp. And he said that if we're always talking about how poor we are and we'll never get out of debt, and we have all of those thoughts and expressions verbally, that we're just repelling the prosperity that is all of our birthrights. We're all going to, grow like the cedars in Lebanon, but we're pushing it away by our thoughts. And the body of knowledge that this man was sharing, he said, one of the surest ways to become successful is that to help other people become successful, to not only share your contacts, to cheer them on, to even to wish them success and prosperity from your heart to theirs. All of those ways open you up to more prosperity. And he also said that instead of going down the street, remember I was living in LA at the time, he said, don't go down the street in Beverly Hills and go, what do those people do to have these big cars? And you wish them success and prosperity, and you say, and that's for me. instead of just thinking, bad things about their dishonesty or whatever people do towards wealthy people. And anyway, I had this epiphany right after hearing this man that was why I came to LA, not to sell investments, but because I was supposed to be teaching that. And I did. And I started my seminar. And what I did was I studied the great masters of success and prosperity for like the last 100 years or more. And people like Napoleon Hill and Wallace Wattles and Florence Scovel Shinn, and they all basically said the same thing, and that is, one, your word is your wand. They also said that things like when you have an idea of something that you want to manifest on the planet, don't go around telling everybody what you're going to do. What is sacred should be kept secret, and you should keep it in your heart until that seed has grown into a plant that what I call the discouragement committee cannot crush. Because how many times have we had these wonderful ideas and we share it with people and they tell us all the reasons why it's not going to work? I call those people the discouragement committee, and we've all.
And is that the reason behind that principle? Is it just that psychological thing, or is there some spiritual? I've never heard that. I've never heard that principle to keep the idea to yourself.
Yeah, what is sacred? Sacred and secret, come from the same root. Well, there's a lot of reasons. One is that when you do share it, it loses its power when you share it too soon. It's kind of like if you have a tea kettle and the water is boiling, and every time you let out some steam, it loses its power. But if you keep the steam inside, all of a sudden it's going to be whistling, and it really has to explode into it's what a tea kettle does. But if you
it's not only an idea, it's a personal experience too. I like to share, and I've noticed that when I have some profound experience and I share it with my students or even my family, it diminishes, it fizzles.
Exactly.
And the Torah says, "Siag l'chachma shesika," that the offense around wisdom is silence. So interesting that you're saying this.
Yeah. And how many people, I don't know if people can write in the chat, oh, good, they can, that you've had a great idea and you've shared it with people and then you've never manifested it, either because they discouraged you. There's another thing that happens. You share your idea and people can't say, wow, that's so great. You've already gotten the accolades. So there's not that much pressure to go and actually do it. There's just a zillion reasons why what is sacred should be kept secret. And people say, well, what if you have a mastermind group? People don't necessarily say to you, oh, that's never going to work. But you could see innuendo. You could see a facial expression. You could be like, oh, yeah, that's a good idea.
Yeah, that's nice. You're like,
yeah, that's nice.
The world changing.
Right. And then on an energetic level, it's just, it's like letting all the air out of your balloon. So why do that? Why do that? Why expose your precious idea before it has a chance to manifest? What I did with my company is that I didn't tell anybody what I was up to when I started Yes to Success for months. My friends knew I was working on something, but it wasn't until I rented a room at the Santa Monica Library when I took that step from which there was no turning back, which is another principle of success, that I had to put up posters. It was 1980. That was how we communicated back then. And when I put up the posters, I couldn't turn back. And believe it or not, when I put up the posters, the discouragement committee did come out. They came like, oh, nobody's going to believe a crazy idea like your thoughts create your reality. But the posters are already up. So if you're finding that you have this idea and you're procrastinating, take a step from which there is no turning back.
It's been the only go-to that ever got me past my fear. I've done it so many times, including now.
Right. And that's how Yes to Success started. People say, oh, nobody was going to be there. And I walked in the room and there was standing room only. And within a few short years, my seminar was being taught all over the world in 9 countries. Actually, one of my friends said 12. She said, I forgot about some of the countries. But that's it. It is just those few simple principles, because see, I believe that God, the creator, whispers an idea in your ear because you're the one that's supposed to manifest it. I believe that you're not given a thought, this is what I should do, without being given everything you need to manifest that idea. I don't believe that the creator is a trickster and that the creator is going to whisper an idea into your ear and then not give you what you need to turn it into a reality.
Wow. So
And
when it doesn't happen, sorry, go ahead. No.
no, that's it. Inherent in the seed is the whole apple tree. Inherent in your idea is the manifestation of your idea. But you have to, when people say, oh, well, I visualize. Visualization is great. I teach people to visualize, not just, I will have a best-selling book. I will have a best-selling book. The way I teach people to visualize is not only visualize what you want. Like people say, oh, did you visualize standing room only? I visualize those people in front of me and their lives being changed and their hearts full of gratitude and my heart connecting to their heart. And because that's when I can get behind it, not like, oh, I have a best-selling book. I have a best-selling book. No, when I visualize the looks on people's faces, when they take my seminar and they do yes to success and then their life shifts, that's what that feeling is, what I visualize. And, but anyway, so that's what I was going to add, but you have to take action. You can't just visualize. I remember Jim Carrey once said, somebody said, I heard that you visualize your way to success. He said, yeah, I did. I wrote a check to myself for $1 million and put in the memo for, whatever it was, top grossing movie or something. And he said, but after I did that, I didn't just go eat a sandwich. He worked. So it works if you work it. So all those principles are good, but it's also good to, you have to take action.
Well, that's a principle. That's not separate from the principles. Your word is your wand. Your ideas, I can't quote exactly, but your idea is sacred.
Right.
The next one, what was the next one? Just recapping.
Take a step from which there's no turning back.
Take a step from which there's no turning back. I can't believe I forgot that one. Yeah. Take action, but also you didn't say this is a principle either, but I think maybe you call it a principle and maybe you have a name for it. But what you said, it was so profound that you visualize the effect on the people. And you know what, Debra, that just in case people don't know you, that is who you are. That's where your heart is. I can't say that I'm always there. I mean, I'm there in a general way, but I'm not always thinking, I wish that I were. It's something to strive for, but to be able to really clearly go that far and see, I think in more general terms, like I want to do this, it's going to make a difference, but to be able to actually go to the people that you don't know and visualize the feelings that they will have and feel joy for that, that's already miraculous. That's already transformational. You're touching something so cosmic and deep from the collective soul. Yes. It's very godly. So I just, do you have a name for that? Is that one of your
Well, on a more practical level, I just want to say also, those of you listening who would like to be speakers, who would like to stand in front of groups, it's a sure way to get rid of your fear, because if it's all about you, oh, what are they going to think of me? Are they going to like me? Are they going to reject me? Am I going to get a standing ovation? That's all about you. But if you, before you go out on stage, you visualize their eyes and their hearts and their receptivity and everything that you're going to pour into them, then you go out and it's about them and not about you. And that's a sure way to make your fear go away.
Wow. It's true too. Yeah, I think now as you're speaking, I'm thinking about this, with the speakers today, it's been like everything seems to have a few through lines, but it's really about the personal, deep personal work. It's about seeing everything as a miracle. It's about understanding that everything is on the path, like you said. And then we've just had the speaker who was just on was talking about triggers, and she's a healer. She was talking about triggers and how triggers are behind almost everything. And now as you're speaking, I'm thinking, I have deep triggers from my dad about like doing things right and being and not and making mistakes. And David, you're not on mute. We hear you coughing. And so I think that it's clear that gets in the way because it causes you a trigger causes you to look back and think about yourself and focus on yourself and whether you're conscious of it or not, what you're having an emotional reaction to it, and then you cannot be in your flow. Yeah, it's very wow. Thank you. That's really amazing.
Well, thank you. And I just glanced over the chat and somebody said your word is your wand. That's actually the title of a book. I believe it's either Catherine Ponder, Ponder, or Florence Scoville Shinn, Shinn. One of those two ladies in like the 1930s or 40s wrote a book called Your Word is Your Wand. So that's where I got that from. It's not from me or from Shifra.
So when you had that standing room only event, that first event, were there people that we have heard of at that event? Yes. And here's what I really want to ask you. The people that you mentored that became so well known, were they well-known people who came to you, or did they come to you as just like any of the rest of us and they were interested and then it just happened? I mean, I don't think it just happened, but it
Well,
happened.
I'll tell you, I don't feel I'm fine talking about it. When I don't know if anybody read Janet Atwood's book, The Passion Test. It was a New York Times bestseller. And the whole first chapter is how she came to my Yes to Success seminar. And she thought, when we worked on the goal setting part, what she realizes that she wanted to do what I was doing. And so the story goes in her book, which she did, she followed me from city to city, from Orlando to New York, to Boston, to Washington, to Chicago, because I told her she wanted to work for me and then become a Yes to Success trainer. And finally, when she showed up at the 9th city, I said, okay, you're hired. And that was her first speaking engagement. And she did part of my Yes to Success seminar and then went on. The Passion Test is the #1 tool being used worldwide to help people discover their passions. And then Marcy Shimoff, of Chicken Soup fame and Happy for No Reason and Love for No Reason and Your Year of Miracles. She was my secretary back in the secretary personal assistant. And same thing, how she got her first speaking engagement was back in 1981 or 1982. I got sick and I was supposed to go to New York. And she said, well, what are we going to do? We have to cancel. And I said, no. And she said, well, who's going to do it? I said, you are. And she had to fly to New York and she did fabulously well. Everybody loved her. And that was the beginning of her speaking career. And she's one of the most successful women speakers in our country. She's very, very successful. And Deepak Chopra was one of my students, as you know. He lived in Boston at the time, and he came to my Yes to Success seminar in Cambridge at least 2 or 3 times. And then he had me come to his house and give it for his relatives, his family, his kids. So anyway, so yes, lots of people who we know. I could go on and name drop till the cows come home. I'm in Iowa right now, so there are a lot of cows here.
Right. Okay. So what I have a few, I have a few directions I want to go in, but tell me what's changed. Like you relaunched Yes to Success just a little while ago. And when you first did it, how long ago was it again?
1980.
1980. So that's over 20 years ago. So what's changed? What's changed in your program? What's changed in the climate? What's changed in people? And also what's changed in the realm of miracles? Like what you see and experience.
Yes. Well, gosh, there's so many answers there. And actually it's more than 30 years ago it was 33 years ago when I started Yes to Success. But I think, is that 90? Let's see. Or is that 40? No, that's 40.
43. It's 40,
That's
80,
43
90
years ago.
Yeah. Time flies whether you're having fun or not, right?
I'm trying to make myself younger. Yeah, 43 years ago. And I had already been teaching meditation for 10 years. But okay, so here's the thing. I believe that everybody is responsible for their own miracles. I believe, of course, as you do, or you wouldn't be doing the summit, that that miracles are the domain of everybody's life. And what I find is that there are ways that we can create more miracles in our lives consciously.
Yes.
And one thing I want to say is that when I was a young meditation teacher in the 1970s, the teacher who I studied with said that there were 7 stages of consciousness, but I'm not going to go into all of them, but it's actually germane to this point. He said most people experience 3 stages of consciousness. waking, dreaming, and sleeping. And each one has a mental and physical basis. And that's it. Waking, the mind is alert, the body is active, the heart rate, the breath rate, faster than sleep. Sleep, the mind is not alert. If someone came in and said fire, you would not jump up because you're, dead to the world as it is. And the body is at rest. The heart rate settles down, the skin resistance is less. All indicates a deep state of rest. Then there's dreaming. And in dreaming, it's a completely different. The mind is not alert to the world. Again, somebody says fire, you would not jump up and run out. But during a dream, your breath could be, rapid, your heart could be pounding. So there are three distinct states of consciousness. But as we practice techniques, whether it's meditation, whether it's prayer, whether it's breath techniques, whatever it is, we begin to experience a fourth state of consciousness, which is transcendental consciousness. And this is a different state of physiology. In transcendental consciousness, have you ever had experience where you were so deep in prayer that you had to take a sudden deep breath because it was as if your breath had stopped?
Yeah.
Right? You were so deep. And again, there are many, many ways that people can experience this transcendental consciousness. And even the existentialists, the poets, Emerson, Thoreau, they said they looked at a sunset or a pond and they experienced that expansion. And they were in complete silence. And what we do is every time we do a spiritual practice that brings us that silence, more of that silence stays with us throughout the day. So you could be in the middle of dynamic activity and you could still have that silence remain. So basically, I do my meditation, I dive into that silence, I come out, just like you dive into a swimming pool, you come out wet. I dive into my meditation and I come out infused with silence. Now, this is so interesting because this particular teacher taught a meditation that came from Indian meditation. And I remember being at a course with him, and we had been meditating 8, 10, 12 hours a day for months on end, silence for a lot of the time. And we said to him, how many more of these courses do we have to do until that silence is established in our everyday life? And he said, oh, you don't have to do any more. He said, you could be walking down the street in New York and inhale the fumes of a bus as it passes by and go into a state of self-awareness, go into a state of enlightenment. Now you think about this, I realize that awakening is a state where you spontaneously are always in touch with your intuition. You don't doubt it, you go with it. There's no fear, where miracles are just the order of the day. But getting to that place is not necessarily linear. I do believe that we should do spiritual practices, whether it's meditation, prayer, breath, japa, whatever it is. And I do believe that the more we do those spiritual practices, our lives become more of an effortless flow. But there are many ways to wake up. And when we wake up, we also see the connection, the oneness between you and me. We see that there's no separation between us and this table, us and the trees, us and the flower, and that we're all made of the same essence. And I believe that there are ways other than spiritual practices that we can get there too. And I'd love to share that if that's okay.
Please, of course.
Okay. So I think everyone is experiencing more miracles because the veil is thinner now. I know we've talked about this before.
I'm so glad you're saying it.
Right?
Real thing.
It is a thing. And we can even speed up the thinning of the veil between us and, our higher self, the God of our understanding, in many, many ways. And also so that we don't doubt our intuition. Now, in Kabbalah, I remember reading that this concept of tikkun, we know tikkun olam to repair the world. It's one of the 613 mitzvot. But in this particular, I think it was Michael Berg, who I was listening, speaking about it, and Rabbi Berg, and he said that there, just like there is a sun that shines on everyone, the sun doesn't just shine on old people or young people or black people or white people, or the sun shines on everyone, but we decide how much sun we want. We could put up an umbrella and not get any sun. We could go live in a bunker and die of vitamin D deficiency, but the sun is still there.
Right.
And he said that just so there's this light of grace, the light of the Creator pouring on us, but we block that light. And our job in this lifetime is to remove the veils between us and the light of God, to remove the veils between us and the light of grace. It's there. It's there all the time. We just don't experience it. For example, a central principle of Judaism is tzedakah, which doesn't just mean charity, but it means righteousness and justice. Tzedakah is about making the world a fair and more just place for everyone. So every time we do an act of tzedakah, we remove a veil between us and the light of God. Or tikkun olam. Every time we do something to repair the world, he explained that we remove a veil between us and the light of God. And doing any one of the mitzvot removes the veil between us and the light of God. Not speaking ill, not carrying tales, not bearing a grudge. I'm not going to say all 613, not taking revenge, not to stand idly by when another human is in danger, honoring our father and mother. All of these mitzvot were required to live the mitzvot, but also when we do any kind of act of goodness, it removes a veil between us and the light of God, us and the light of grace. And what happens is that when that grace just is showering down on us because we have consciously removed veils between us and the light of God, that's when miracles show up. That's when, we want to get married and we just walk into a cafe and we meet our basheret. It's like, oh my goodness, how it's a miracle. Miracles are just waiting for us, but we have to do our part. And another thing that I do, and I'd love to know your thoughts on what I'm sharing here, but one of the things that I do that I also believe removes a veil between us and the light of God is to give thanks every time a little miracle happens. Remember, just like we give thanks for our food. That's one of the mitzvot. We say thank you for our food, right? But I personally give thanks every time a miracle happens. If I get a good parking place, I say, thank you to God. Because I believe that when you say thank you, when you have gratitude, it opens you up to more miracles. It's almost like if something good happens to us, I deserve it. It's a contraction thing, but we say, thank you, God. Thank you. It opens us up to more and more miracles coming into our lives.
So it's like closed and open. The visual I'm getting is like you say light. I'm sure you also mean there's a flow. There's a flow of goodness. There's a flow of love. There's from the source. There's a flow of blessings. There's a flow of, as we move toward, you say tikkun olam, as we move toward a rectified world. That's the world of redemption. That's a world where nobody has to struggle, where what should be is. So I think it's amazing what you're saying, that every time we participate consciously in something in that direction, or open our consciousness to an awareness of that reality and train our brain and our reticular activating system to be on the lookout for more of that, it just makes us much more of an open vessel. So it's like a net in the ocean, right? You're fishing and you have a big net that isn't shut and there's fish there, so they get into your net.
And there's another benefit to removing veils and allowing the light of Hashem to come in. And that is, when we allow that light to come in, we're bringing more light onto the earth. We're helping for the light.
Oh, no, it's definitely that's how I took it. Although, yeah, there's a personal level, but 100%, when you cannot do something that removes the veil between God and creation without affecting all of creation. Just that not everybody's going to be open to. Well, I want to ask you, and I just want to read something that somebody said, but I want to ask you more about what you're experiencing in your work and yourself and your students and your friends that you weren't experiencing before. But there's somebody, one of the the community here, Wanda says, oh my goodness, what she just said about walking into a cafe and meeting one's match, that literally just happened to me last month. Isn't that amazing?
See, you're in the flow of miracles. So you must be doing something really right. And one other thing I want to add though, and that is I give thanks even when something not so good happens, because I really believe that everything happens. Byron Katie says this, everything happens for you or not to you. You don't have to like it. It's just easier if you do.
Yeah.
that you like because I'm going to give you an example. So a couple of weeks ago, I was traveling and I had 3 bags that I needed to check. And I was going to pay for 2 of them. And I went in the little kiosks to pay and I didn't even pay and 3 tags came out. So I said to the lady there, you know, how they help you with that little, and I said, you know, I didn't pay for these. I was trying to put my credit card in it. And all of a sudden these 3 tags came out. She says, well, it's your lucky day. And I said in my heart, thank you. I said, thank you to God what a gift, right? Yesterday, I was flying from Chicago to Cedar Rapids, Iowa, and I had to check 3 bags. And because I'm United mileage, whatever, preferred, 1 bag always is free. And then so I figured the second bag would be 35 and the third bag would be 45. But it didn't happen that way. Because I had 3 bags, 1 is free, but the second bag was 45 and the third bag was 150.
Wow.
Because it was the third bag. It didn't count as the second bag. I hope you followed that. And it was too late. I had 3 bags and it was $195. And what I always do
Like
is
a 5-minute flight.
yeah, exactly. It's not 40 minutes, right? I should have walked with them. But anyway, when it happened, at first I was like, oh, I thought, oh, is there anything we could do? And I thought, you know, thank you, God, because see, I believe as you sow, so shall you reap. And if I did something, maybe I stole some money from, you know, literally I didn't steal it, but, you know, maybe something. And now that has to, as I sowed, now this is what I'm reaping. And I always say thank you to God, because I would rather it be $195 than, God forbid, something happened to one of my children or something like that for the thing to come back to me. Right. So when something like, okay, it's $195, I say, thank you, God. And I believe
If you were someone else, I wouldn't even believe you, but I do believe you.
you do, I do.
But maybe doing this practice has made you the way you are now because it wires it in and it, right?
And to answer your question, what's different in my life is that everything's different, because it's, even Shakespeare said there's nothing either good nor bad, but thinking makes it so. That could have been a really bad thing. I could be harping on it for days. I can't believe it, $195, 3 bags. But your happiness is really just a thought away. And the thought could be, this is so bad, this is so unfair, they should have put it on their website, as if I read their website. Or I could say, thank you, and just know that there has to be a blessing. Nothing is either good nor bad, but our thinking makes it so. Byron Katie, everything happens for you, not to you. You don't have to like it, $195. It's just easier if you do. So what's been different in my life? And also what we put our attention on is what grows in our life. We hear that over and over and over. So do I want to put my attention on how unfair it was, $195, or what a blessing it was that that's how I got rid of it, you know, the word karma. That's how I worked off my karma, rather than something else that could have been a lot worse. Thank you.
Well, that's how you opened your channels and provided more light and an open pathway for, I mean, for thousands of people that will hear this.
Yeah.
Which is also, wow.
Yeah. And you know what, Shifra? And by the way, I just have to say this, you look so pretty today.
Thank you.
It's just a word from our sponsor. You look so beautiful. But I wanted to share with everybody another story about how I've said your word is your wand. Our thoughts create our reality. it's, you know, when we see something we want, instead of saying, well, I wonder what that person did to get that, you know, or, you know, how did she have that handsome husband? She's like an awful person. And all we're doing is putting veils between us and the light. That's all we're doing every time we do that. But if we say that's for me and we wish those people success and prosperity, it's another way that goodness comes into our life. But I have been, and I wanted to share with everybody that time that I flatlined, you know, when I died. You've heard
Oh,
this.
yes. But yes, that's really important. But my brain got stuck on something you just said. Maybe it's really obvious. Sometimes that happens, but it's not going in. When you said that every time we look at the negative, you know, victims, we begrudge someone else, it puts the veil on. So I get the thought, but what's the mechanism? Why does that work? Because it closes you? Because how does that, what happens to the person's system or their brain?
So say that again. So that
So
why
when
is it?
I'm saying, oh, those stupid, you know, they're just exploiting and they have everything, you know, they have everything and they have the big house and that's not fair. And why is it like that? What is it doing to the system? Is it just closing us?
Yes,
Or,
tuning fork. Remember the
oh,
tuning
tuning
fork?
fork. That's what you're saying, tuning fork. Oh,
Yeah.
yes, say more
Okay.
about that. And then
I
you're
have to-
saying the flatline.
I have to tell you another story. It's not my near-death experience, but really quickly, I have to tell you a story of something that happened when I was in junior high. I was probably 13. I don't know if I ever told you this story, but
Mhm.
it was my first experience I ever had of that there's more than just this physical body and physical world that we see with our five senses. And I mean, I had blissful experiences when I was in Temple with my mom and my dad. And, you know, there were always wonderful experiences of just love and open-hearted. And but
Oh,
one time I was 13 years old and I was out on the playground at my school, East Prairie School in Skokie, Illinois. And I don't know if I told you this, but I have to say this because it's part of the story. So I was one of the very popular girls, you know, very cool girl. And we had our club. We had a club and the club members hung out on a certain park bench out in the recess area. And it was every girl's dream to be somebody in our club and invited into our club. So I'm sitting on the park bench and two girls bring over somebody and who was decidedly uncool and this plays into the story and says to her, guess what? We're inviting you into the club.
were they doing it out of a good heartedness or they wanted to set
Well,
the person?
here's the rest of the story. So this girl lit up, the light in her eyes. It was, you know, just like as if we had given her a gold brick, much more than a gold brick. Then those two girls said, oh, we're just kidding. We would never let you be in our club. And at that moment, my heart just went, I mean, it was like a knife in my heart that those two girls could do this to this other girl. And as soon as that pain went into my heart, I had this experience of seeing the whole universe.
Wow.
And I saw the whole universe. I never shared this with you.
No.
I saw the whole universe like a matrix. And I saw that girl's pain went out and affected every corner of creation.
Wow.
And here I am in my little 13-year-old experience, and I see it. It was like a net. It was like a matrix. I saw it went out it vibrated pain out into the world from one person. And then I saw that pain from her heart went back into these other two girls 1,000 times. It was like those two girls, their being was just like flooded with darkness. And I'm sitting there, this little 13-year-old on the park bench in East Prairie School. And at that moment, I said to God, I said, I will never hurt anyone intentionally for the rest of my life. I made a promise to God at that moment. Have I been 100% perfect? No. Have I
Very
been
close. I would
really,
bet
really
very,
good?
very close to it.
Very
You
close
said
because
intentionally.
I saw it. And so whenever we're going to say something mean or out of anger or out of spite, just know not only are you affecting the whole entire creation, but that pain is coming back to you 1,000-fold. At least that was my experience. And so one of the reasons I think that my life has been quite an effortless flow is because of that experience when I was 13 years old. I mean, now I'm, you know, I'm over 70 and you know that I am. And I still feel that experience from that day. It will always be a part of my life.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
Really incredible.
So
Did the girl,
now,
somebody else is asking, I also wanted to ask, did anything happen to the girl? Did she just walk away or?
you know, I've been asked that before, needless to say, like, what happened? Did you invite her in? I have no recollection. Absolutely none. I
Mm.
just remember that moment where I saw this. I mean, it was pretty, you know, knock you out. You know, I never even shared it with anybody because I thought people would think I was crazy. I did share it with one of my spiritual teachers like a decade later, and they said, yes, it was a very legitimate experience, and that is what happens. That one person's pain is the world's pain, and one person's joy is the world's joy.
And
if we
also that
want
it
joy
goes
in the
back into
world,
the darkness. It brings darkness back into the person
yeah.
who creates it.
So now I should probably tell my near-death experience, which is a different experience, but it will also, because I had said that what I wanted the name of my talk to be Miracles Are Just One Thought Away. So I want to tell about why I believe that miracles are just a thought away.
That's
What happened?
that's awesome. That's awesome. We have 12 minutes to,
Yes.
somebody is asking about the tuning fork. You just mentioned, could you explain that in like 10 seconds? I mean,
Yes.
time for,
I had said it at the beginning, but I had gone to a lecture in the Learning Annex in 1980, and the man was explaining that we are like tuning forks, and if an F sharp is vibrating, you know it repels the B flat, pushes it
right.
away. It could only draw into it an F sharp. And he said, if we're always talking about how bad life is and how I'll never be wealthy and I'll never get out of debt, or I'll never get married, nobody wants a, 60-year-old widow, whatever our story is, that's how we're vibrating. And we just push that person away, or that money away, or that career away, if we're vibrating with that negativity.
Wow.
So what we want to do is we want to talk about the good things that are happening. I have a friend who was 70 and she found her Sharon, and they got married and they're happy. And,
3 years
so
later.
that's what you want to do. You want to uplift your vibration, and, have faith that everything is exactly as it should be. And if what you want is money or success or whatever it is, just know that it's coming. You wouldn't have the desire, but you can also keep that away by not vibrating in a way that will attract that into your life.
Thank you for explaining that more. Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. This is so wisdom packed. Okay. Your
So
experience.
yes, near-death experience. So basically what happened was that, I'd heard people had gone to the other side and came back, and I thought it was always cool, but never thought it would happen to me. I wasn't sure how much I believed. I mean, I believed it, but some of the stories are pretty fantastic. So about 6 years ago, I guess it was, I was living in Chicago, and my husband and I had just separated. So I was living in an apartment by myself, and I was sick. I had a flu. And on Monday, when I started getting this flu, usually what I'm doing right now is I drink lots of hot liquid and electrolytes and take echinacea and zinc and C, and I knock the thing out. Okay. But this time I got sick on a Monday, and by Tuesday I was sicker, and Wednesday I was sicker, and by Saturday I was lying in bed and thinking, I'm going to die and nobody will know it. So I called a friend of mine. I actually called a friend of mine who was a healer, and he was a long distance healer. And I said, can you help me? He said, yes, if you promise you do exactly what I tell you to do. And I said, what? He said, call 911 immediately. So I called 911. The paramedics came there to break in because I was so weak at that point. I was really slipping away. I couldn't even get up to answer the door. They asked me what hospital I wanted to go to, and I said Evanston, which is like 11 minutes away. And they were afraid I wasn't going to make it the 11 minutes. It turned out that I had an acute sepsis, which is bacteria in your blood. I had just been in a developing country. I actually had 2 foreign deadly bacteria in my blood. But anyway, so they get me to the emergency room and they're hooking me up to all of these tubes and monitors and this and this. And my blood pressure was like 52/28. As they say, it was incompatible with life. A nice way of saying you probably should have died. And I'm lying there on the gurney and I start going to the other side. And I noticed that when my eyes were open, I could see everybody rushing around trying to save my life. When my eyes were closed, I could also see everybody rushing around trying to save my life, but I saw something else. And I saw that there was this divine light that was guiding them. Like every movement of every nurse's hand was guided by this light. And I mean, it was incredible. I just couldn't believe what I was seeing. And then in the space between life and death, it didn't look like I was going to make it. I saw a nurse go over to my husband, who I separated from, who we were still really good friends, and we still are very, very close. But he had come because the healer called him and told him to get over to the hospital. And he was sitting in a chair, and I remember over to my left, and there were tears rolling down his face because it looked like I was going. And a nurse went over to him and put her hand on his shoulder and said, "Don't worry, she's going to be fine." And when she said the word, "she's going to be fine," I saw a light. I saw the words come out of her mouth in that space between life and death. And the words, "she's going to be fine," went out of her mouth and into my body, accompanied by, it was kind of like My Little Pony, that rainbow, did it? It was accompanied by this sparkly light. They went into my body and it brought me back to life. And I thought, oh my gosh, we do have, our words do have a dominion over life and death. I remember lying there. Oh, then one other thing happened. And then the doctor came in, looked at the monitors and said, "Get that blood pressure up or we're going to be losing her." And when he said that, I saw the words come out of his mouth, but they were like this brown gray kind of gunk. And they even smelled like a swamp, you know, that horrible swampy smell. And they went into my body and took my strength away again. And I remember lying there and I made a deal with God. I said, "God, let me live. Just let me live. And I promise I will teach as many people the power of their words," because I saw it in the space between life and death, that don't worry, she's going to be fine. We're going to lose her. And at that moment, I also said, "Just let me live." Good news is I lived. That's the good news. But I also made the promise that right. I also made the promise. I said, "And I will never say anything that I don't want to happen." Because you know how we say things about your kids. I have met some of your lovely children. And you know, we say, "Oh, my son, he saw this, my daughters, he saw that, she saw this." And I realized every time I would say something about one of my kids, "Oh, you know, he'd forget his head if it wasn't screwed on." That isn't what I said, but something like that, that my words are going out and they're affecting him. They're making that harder for him to pull himself out of that thing. "Oh, my daughter, she saw this." My words are going into her on an energetic level. So that is probably the last time I said anything negative about my kids or anything I wanted about them, because I saw the power of our words.
A, that's totally incredible. B, it's not that long ago that this story happened, right? Just a few years
Yeah, it
ago.
was about 6 years ago. I
Yeah.
think it was 2015 or 2016. Yeah, it wasn't that long ago.
So the thing that's of the many things that are striking me, do you think the nurse believed what she said, or she was encouraging your ex?
And totally encouraging him because he was sitting there crying. But imagine that. Imagine if all of our nurses, I mean, there's a few other things about that story. One is I could actually, in the place between life and death, I could actually see people's thoughts. And I saw one of the orderlies thinking, "I wish she would die already so I could go home."
Oh my gosh. And what did that do?
It was quite the show in that place between life and death.
Did that go into you also?
Yes,
Did that energy go-
absolutely. I only, share the highlights of that story, but I I mean, I am telling you, I saw the power not only of our words, our thoughts are even more powerful, because think about it, it's just like a molecule is powerful, but the atom is more powerful. The atom is
Right.
powerful, but the neutrons and protons and electrons and the core, the smaller it is, the more powerful, just like our words.
More can permeate, but that's what's one of the many things that's striking me, but what's in my brain right now is that she didn't even have to mean it. She just had a good intention, and that she said something with a good intention created an energy that facilitated your miraculous healing, because you were dying. You were, should have been dead, so to speak. God
Right.
forbid. So that's really, really powerful. And yeah, our thoughts have, I mean, it makes me wonder, it makes sense that our thoughts have more power. And actually the Torah talks about that too, that the thoughts even have even more of creative power than the words. But it's so much food for thought, because if you are thinking something that's not good, even if you, like maybe the nurse was thinking, poor thing, she's going to go, let me make him happy for a minute. The words can counteract it in some way, even though the thoughts are more powerful in a sense. You know what I'm saying?
So I so know what you're saying. And that's why my students often say, well, if I don't really believe I'll ever be wealthy, why should I say it? It's a lie. It's not true. And then I say, well, find something like a micro step that you can take. Can you believe that your finances will be better than they are now? And they say, well, yeah, okay. Then say my finances are getting better and better every day. You don't have to say, I'm going to be a millionaire tomorrow. As a matter of fact, no. But you can have the thought, my finances are getting better. Miracles are coming into my life. Financial miracles, because again, if you have faith, if you believe in the power of God, if you believe in that this is a universe filled with miracles, why don't you just help the process along and not put a veil between you and your miracles by saying it'll never happen to me?
Wow. Wow. I mean, I've talked to you so many times, but this is next level. And that might be part of what's changing, because the veil's
Yes.
thinner. We can hear it. We can feel the energy. We can hear it. I mean, you're just illuminated physically, emotionally, energetically. It's.
And I just have to say one other thing about you, Shifra. You're always on the cutting edge. Do you know, to have a summit that's on metamorphosis and miracles and intuition? I mean, that is the cutting edge. The cutting edge is living as superhumans, where, when people have an intuition and they think, oh, it's probably not an intuition, it's just my fear. Well, but then it keeps coming back. It's your intuition. And the only thing that's keeping you from acting on that intuition is your fear.
Right.
So the only way that you're going to know if it is an intuition that is the voice of God, it's to take action. And even if it wasn't the best action, it will lead you to the right action. You can't steer a parked car. So you got to
man, that's so powerful. You can't steer a parked car.
Right.
I'm
Yeah, you got to get going. You listen to that intuition. Is it fear? Is it really my intuition? Well, act on it.
Yeah.
Act on it. And when you do, I believe that that's when all of the grace just showers down on you, because basically what God is saying is that you trust. And then you'll be steered in the right direction, just like your GPS will get you back on the right road. But if you just sit there and think, I don't know if it's fear, my intuition, I'm not sure, you'll sit there until the day you die. You just have to listen and act.
Incredible, Deb, incredible. I just want to say that the second speaker that we had today, Yehudit Schneider, she's a deep researcher in mysticism, very, very innovative, creative, incredible, but brilliant. But she said something so similar in more of a Hasidic language, but basically that we are creating divine inspiration in the area of life that's left to us by using our best intuition, making a choice, and then seeing what the results are, learning from it, being responsible. And that's how we're maturing to become full adults in a relationship with God. It's amazing. It's just amazing. It's also amazing. Isn't it amazing, guys, how these themes are coming out in so many brilliant ways? It's like a diamond. It's like, this was incredible. Deborah, this is incredible. And I know you're so busy. I know you're so busy, but I really, really want to have an opportunity soon to do a longer. I mean, we'll see if there's a lull and you have the space. And thank you again for always showing up. I love you.
I love you so much, and thank you so much, and thank you to everybody. I wish I could read all the comments. Maybe you could.
We can send them to you if you want. We can send them to you. Yeah, I think
That
that's
would be great.
that's amazing.
All right, and have the great rest of your summit. And I am going to tune in. I've been traveling, and I thought, oh, it's perfect. I'm not traveling just on the day that the summit starts. So I will
Wow.
tune in, and thank you for doing what you do and your contribution to the world. You're such a sensational human being.
Back at you.
I'm glad you're my friend.
All right. Me too. Okay, we have like 2 minutes till the last speaker for the day. So I'm going to go off camera for just a minute and see you guys really soon.